Hello, my name is Matt Roberts and I'm the Director of Research and Analytics at Formula One. Today I'm going to take you through my presentation about how F1 is in pole position with its use of research and data analytics and then basically talk you through how F1 is using and has used market research and data over the last few years, essentially to improve commercial revenue. So first of all, my job as a sort of director of research and analytics is to produce insight for the business. So first of all, what does insight mean? Well, insight basically means how do you interpret trends in humans' behavior? Um, and mainly it's about really getting down to an understanding as why consumers, and in our case, sports fans, act in a certain way, how they share information with each other, how they behave, and what influences their behavior. And this is something that me and my team really go deep into trying to understand why sports fans behave in a certain way, why people are F1 fans, why aren't they fans, and what do we need to do to improve our fandom levels. In terms of insight, insight can be used for a number of use cases within an organization, and particularly within a sports organization. So, insight, sort of essentially data and research is used around TV audience numbers, digital numbers, attendance numbers for fans coming to races. We use our research to understand the effectiveness of sponsorship for our partners. We track sort of fandom, as I've talked about. We can segment our fans into different groups. We track how well our marketing is doing. We help produce targeted communications for our marketing team. We understand more around marketing trends and help the strategy team in their planning as well. And these are just a number of example use cases for research and data within an organization. The challenge really from my team is to make data and research much more usable and actionable across the business. It's not just about pulling data and spreadsheets, it's about making sure that that work that you're doing is used across the company and helps impact the company's strategy. So going into detail around Formula One, you can see on this chart that before 2017, which was when I joined and when Liberty Media took over the sport, F1 really didn't have very much in the way of research or data. We had access to two reports, one report looking at TV audience numbers across 5 key markets, and we also had one report mainly looking at exposure levels for partners. If you fast forward to today, you can see very much that it's a different situation now. We have a lot more projects, as you can see some of the projects there, and we'll go into more detail about these projects shortly. But importantly, we have a lot more stakeholders. So before those two reports, they went to one person. Now we have hundreds of stakeholders, whether they be internal, but also people who work outside of F1 management, so the teams, our sponsors, our partners, yeah, our race promoters, and so on and so forth. So today, really, we have a much better understanding of who our fans are, thanks to the research we're doing around the brand, around our fan segments. We've launched an F1 fan voice community. So this is a community of fans that are contactable for surveys and polls, and we contact them on a regular basis to help provide insight for quick turnaround research. We know a lot more around who they are by our CRM database. F1 did not have a CRM database before we joined in 2017. We know how they're consuming F1. We now know a lot more around their TV and viewing exposure. We know their sort of the analytics around TV, social, digital. We also know what they like and what they dislike, thanks to some of the research methodology that we've been doing, and I'll talk around that later today. We also know what they're experiencing. So basically, when they go to a race, how they experience in F1, what do they like, what do they dislike, what do they think could be improved, what will make them come back the following year. And again, I'll talk you through these projects shortly in terms of the spectator experience and the on-site footfall tracking. We also know how they're engaging with our partners. We've done a lot of work around sponsor valuation, and we know a lot more now around how F1 sponsorship works and how effective it can be. So, sort of taking you back to kind of the very beginning, back in 2017, when we first joined the business, we did a huge brand study basically where we looked into understanding what were the barriers and triggers for engaging fans within the sport. What are we doing right? What aren't we doing right? We did this study in UK, US, and Brazil, and we actually what we found was that we cater very much to super fans, so that real hardcore avid fan group. But back in 2017, we were neglecting those casual fans, those periphery fans, those fans who don't watch as much as the average fans, that don't consume as much. But we just weren't talking to these guys, and this has really become part of our strategy now in terms of how do we engage those casual fans. And some of the things that came out were that we need to really think about drivers and their backstory. Many people could probably not name more than a few F1 drivers. So how can we get these guys, there are 20 of them in the world, there's only 20 people can do this job. How can we get them much more front of mind and their backstories front of mind? And you would have seen things like the Netflix series recently really helped us try to bring these drivers much more to the forefront. The other thing that we really needed to push from this study was this perception of on the edge. Many people started to say that F1 was just about cars driving around the track and wasn't very exciting. But these cars are really pushing what is technically possible, technologically possible. And you've got these drivers that are pushing themselves right to the very limit, so much they get out of the car, they're exhausted, they can barely move. And these were some of the areas we really had to push. That F1 was all about being on the edge of what is humanly and technologically possible. And that's something that has come out very strongly in our marketing over the last few years. So once we decided what we needed to do, we decided to track the F1 brand. So now every 3 months, we interview 2,000 sports fans across 8 different markets. And we understand much more around their levels of engagement with F1, what they think about the brand, their brand statements. And then we've also been able to segment them into 6 different fan groups. And you can see there, each of these fan groups has a different need state. They have different behaviors, and we need to target them in a different way. So for example, the excitables are a really sort of hardcore avid fan group. These guys, they go to races, they buy merchandise. Purists, they're also a hardcore avid fan group, but they don't really go to races. They watch most of their F1 on TV. So these 2 groups require different messaging from our marketing team. As I discussed earlier, we also do a lot of spectator experience at races where we collate basically fan feedback to understand what's working, what isn't working, and what do we need to do to improve the experience at races moving forward. So per year, we interview around 50,000 fans at races. We also have 100 in-depth interviews with fans, and then there's normally around 300 mobile app diaries each year where a number of fans will follow their weekend in a mobile app. This has been a really fascinating study, and we've had some great insights off the back of it, and it's really helped us improve our race, and it helps improve our value for money, because we know the better time people have, the more likely they are to return the next year and spend more money again with F1. So here's just a video which will summarize the performance of F1. I hope you can hear the sound.
Love the track guide. It's the only way I've kept on top of timings this weekend so far. Knowing where it is, knowing where things are at the track, especially in relation to my grandstand. So I know where I am on maps, so it's like, right, so where is it in relation to where I am? It's handy. And it's good knowing when drivers are going to be on stage.
facility is always improving, especially the shuttles and everything around the track. Always they have new concerts. The atmosphere always changing around the track.
Love all of the catering options. You guys have done a great job offering a ton of different cuisines. Like my sister has some allergies. She can eat a ton of stuff here.
I was actually at the race where they had a fan zone for the first time. That was Spain last year. And if you compare it to Spain, it's a huge improvement because a lot of stuff was not that well arranged, there wasn't a lot, and just everybody had to get into the groove. What I like about here is that you have a festival vibe, a lot of places you can go to, you have places to sit, it's excellent.
We really enjoyed the F1 cars that they have on display and stuff like that. It's been really cool being able to see the actual sizes, like see the cockpit and everything. It's been really cool.
The older vintage race cars all the way to the new McLaren Senna.
Yeah, it was dope.
It was real fun to experience and like be here for the festival and everything, but like we actually explored Marseille too, and we walked around all the local shops, the local pubs.
Yesterday, I couldn't find the pit races, or if they changed the tires. We couldn't find that. We walked around for an hour and we couldn't find it.
There was just no TV screen close to where we were to be able to follow what is going on. How come on such a huge track, there's so little?
There's even something during the day that involved the drivers, whether it's a question and answer or even a karaoke from the drivers, anything that's some a bit of fun. We'd probably encourage us to go along to it.
It does play a big role because that's how I can convince somebody that doesn't like the F1 as much. It's great. It's like, let's go. Like, I don't like that. I don't care about that. Britney Spears is playing. It's like, okay, let's go.
Kind of useful just to see what's kind of coming up, like the different events on the fan village later. That's kind of handy because years ago you used to never know what was going on. So like if you're sitting the other side of the track, you see these things on telly, go, I didn't know about that. So you can kind of structure your day a bit better and get around in time.
We bought our tickets through Silverstone for the Silverstone website. There was nothing on there in terms of what the schedule was for anything on track or fan zone. The only way we found it was on a third-party website. So if that was more readily available, then yeah, I think we'd probably have more reasons to go down there.
Compared to the previous years, I've been here a few years in a row now, and I think it's improved massively.
So you can see from that video some of the changes that we've made and how some of the things that we've done at F1 races have been perceived by fans. So generally this work will continue every year and we'll constantly try to improve as a result of the work that we do. As well as doing the spectator experience work, we also track fans as well in terms of their movement around the circuit, and we do this via sort of the latest kind of sensor technology. So we place around 55 sensors at our races, and we use those sensors to understand where people are around the circuit, and those sensors will pick up people's Wi-Fi signals from their mobile phones. So if people have their Wi-Fi enabled, they will be picked up and their signal will be picked up, and we can then work out exactly where they are and how many people there are in different parts of the circuit. The reason why we do this is to really understand how we can improve the commercial revenue. Are we putting things in the right place, like merchandise, like food and drink, like our fan activations, and also understand a lot more around how people behave, how long do they stay for, when do they arrive, when do they leave, etc. and so on. This is just an example of a few of the bits of data that we've collected. This was Austin in 2018, and you could see the times that people were arriving at the race circuit, and actually there was a peak in arrivals at about 5 p.m. in the evening. Those of you who are F1 fans will know that qualifying on Saturday takes place at 2 till 3. So that's actually after the track action had finished. So these are people attending a music concert, the Justin Timberlake concert that evening. So what we're able to do is actually feed this back to the promoter and say, obviously, there's a great opportunity here to actually sell F1 music combined merchandise, because it's a whole bunch of people who are coming just for the music element. There's also a job to be done for us to make sure that we, inform people of the benefits of coming to F1 races earlier as well. So there's there's real insight from this piece of work. This was Spain in 2018 or 2019, and you can see that we found out that 49% of all visitors arrived via gate 6 and 7. However, our fan zone and our food and drink, kind of big food and drink area, was all the way by gate 1, which was about a 5-kilometre walk away. So again, this really helps us make sure that in the future we place things in the right location, and in the following year these areas were placed much closer to where the traffic was. This was France last year, and again you can see how many people were seen by merchandise stands. So you can see that there was a mega store, 17% were seen in or around the mega store, 39% by one of our satellite stores, but there were 44% of people not seen at any merchandise stand or a merchandise store. So this allowed us to really understand who are those people, where were those people going, and where do we need to put more merchandise stands to make sure that we reach those people. We're also able to understand, in France again, how people behaved after they arrived at the circuit. So this is their first point of stop after they entered the circuit, and you can see that 56% of people went straight to their seat to see what the seat was like. The 20% went and bought merchandise. So we can start really understanding how fans are behaving. Just some of the things that we've changed as a result of this piece of work. So we've actually F1 has now launched an F1 app, an event app to help improve information and wayfinding. So more maps, more ways to get to different places, what people can do at different times. We've launched new merchandise stores and satellite areas for people to go to, because we found out that just weren't enough. We weren't reaching enough people. We've changed the location of our fan activations to maximize awareness engagement. We know the more kind of activations, so things like simulators, where activations where you can do your own pit stop, for example, the more people do these, the better value for money experience they have, and the more likely they are to return the following year. We've also adapted our fan forum schedule, which is the stage as a result of understanding when there was footfall in this area. Moving on from the fan work, this is the work we do amongst our TV audience. So we actually have a group of about 100 people in the UK who wear this device in their hand. You can see on the video that device. They wear that device and they watch every race. We actually have about 100 people now. It says 60 on the slide, but we have 100 per race. And this will pick up basically when they are engaged, when they are not engaged, as a result of their kind of skin response. So it will pick up their skin response to the race. So if they're sweating, then often that is a sign of engagement, as an example. So basically it will measure their levels of sweat, and that will be used to determine engagement. This is what the study looks like in terms of the output. You can understand for a particular race, the trace line will show you when they're most engaged and when they're less engaged. You can see the first big peak is at the start of the race. And you can see that kind of ups and downs as the race goes on. What we're very interested in is the downs, and how do we turn those down moments into more positive engagement scores for future races. So we can start looking at what is driving those disengaged moments within a race. This is an example
their rivals. Ted, what do you think?
I mean, they did have a set of soft tyres that had a few laps, 3 laps on it, but I tend to agree with you there, Crofty, and also the fact that they are just going so well. I mean, I don't think they're doing a little bit of a fuel save in the middle of the period of the race, and they're going so well on this medium tyre. that I think for Hamilton it was
but
the
what
only
we
decision.
do
Maybe
is
for
bring
Bottas,
in
they should
Christian
have pitted him.
Horner from Red Bull,
Let's go
who
down
comes
to the
in
pit
to
wall
give
once
his
again.
view,
The Red Bull pit wall,
and
Christian
suddenly
Horner,
people are really
and
engaged. So
safety
it shows
car
to us that if we
coming
can
out.
get
Christian,
talent to
you are
talk about
right
the
back in
racing,
this race now.
engagement
Well, it's
will
going to
come
be
back to
fascinating run
watching
to
out
the
what
end because
happens.
you've got a whole mishmash of different tyres on different cars. They're obviously both Mercedes on the hard, and the Ferraris ourselves on the soft. Unfortunately, Daniel's lost out on that safety car because he pitted 2 laps earlier, but he's got a good tyre on, as has Max, to the end of the race.
Christian, we often play the game, what would you do, Martin? I'd like to play the game now, what would you do, Christian? If you were Mercedes, would you have pitted your drivers under the safety car, or did what they did and kept them out?
It's tricky to know where their deck is and so on. I don't know, probably would have left out Lewis because of it.
So you can see there, the minute Christian Horner, who's the Red Bull team principal, comes in, suddenly the trace line comes up. So this was a way to essentially temper some of that downtime where there was low engagement and make people more engaged. So there's been a number of times that we're using this study to help understand, what is working, what do we need to do to improve the race experience for TV viewers, and we know that we probably have around 11-12 minutes before the typical casual fan turns over the TV. So we have to try and keep those people there for as long as possible, because often in F1 the start is the most exciting bit in the end, and some people just switch off for the middle bit. So we need to make sure there's wall-to-wall action. So just some of the things we've changed as a result. So onboard cameras, we know that if there's 2 cars dueling, people are very engaged. If it's just Lewis Hamilton in the lead and there's a clear track ahead, their engagement levels are much lower. Safety car we just talked about, and then the midfield runners is what we know that from the study that people would rather see battles in the midfield with people trying to overtake each other than one car out front 10 seconds in the lead. So it's just given us some guidance. This is used by our TV team now every race to try and improve that experience. And then so one of the last few projects that I wanted to share with you today, we've built a huge database at F1. I think we're up nearly now to about 10 million fans. We had 0 in 2017. So these are fans now that we can contact. We've kind of pulled all those fans in from different tools, as you can see there on the chart. And then we can start targeting different fan segments with messages around buying tickets, buying merchandise, reminding them that a race is on this weekend, and so on and so forth. And we've also launched a community, I think I mentioned it earlier on, called F1 Fan Voice. You're all very welcome to join. It's www.f1fanvoice.com. And we've basically built this community. People do surveys and polls, and they can win prizes, they can win tickets. And this has created a great opportunity for us to do quick turnaround market research with our fans across a range of topics, such as digital, such as rules and regulations, such as the fan experience when you go to a race. So we're constantly using this platform, and we have about 115,000 members. So in summary, the F1 research and analytics team is relatively a new team, but we can really add value to the business by helping them to improve, to identify new revenue opportunities, to support the creation of new content, better monetize our data, but also improve that fan experience across not just TV, but also people going to races and our digital experience. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.